We are halfway through the month of December, and with roughly 10 games in the books for most teams, I wanted to give my updated top 25 rankings in college basketball after week 6 of the 2025-26 season. But before we get into the rankings, if you enjoy the content, please consider dropping a like on the video and subscribing to the channel. And now, let's jump into it. And coming in as my number one team is Michigan, and 10 games into the season, the Wolverines look like a legitimate national title favorite. After some early growing pains, everything clicked once this team hit Las Vegas, and since then, it's been pure dominance. Michigan has piled up blowout wins over elite competition, including Auburn, Gonzaga, and Villanova this past week, where they won by double digits yet again in another statement performance, and they followed that up by pulling away from Maryland late on the road, even after trailing at halftime. And since the Players Era tournament, Michigan has won 6 straight games by an average of 32 points, and they're doing it against really good teams, and is why I have Michigan at the top spot this week. But checking in at number 2 is Arizona, and it's hard to imagine a much better start for the Wildcats. Tommy Lloyd's group has been rolling since opening night and continues to stack elite wins, including a road victory over UConn and a dominant showing against Auburn, and that momentum carried into Birmingham this weekend, where Arizona delivered a stunning 21-point blowout over Alabama and one of the most impressive performances of the season. And the Wildcats have shown their versatility by controlling the paint, overwhelming opponents offensively, and stepping up in key moments. And whether shots are falling or not, Arizona consistently finds answers against some top-tier competition, and their resume was already strong, but this latest performance elevated it even further and has Arizona firmly as my second-ranked team. At number 3 is Duke, and the Blue Devils continue to pass every test thrown their way. Their perfect start includes multiple ranked wins and success away from home, which has proved this group can win in difficult environments. Cameron Boozer has lived up to expectations early this season, helping fuel an offense that has been consistently productive time and time again. And Duke didn't have a game last week, but their previous stretch was impressive, with consecutive wins over Arkansas, Florida, and Michigan State, and those performances showcase their ability to execute late and lock in defensively when it matters most. And while this team is still far from perfect, the progress has been clear, and with more big matchups ahead like Texas Tech, Duke has opportunities to move up even higher. Landing at number 4 is Iowa State, and the Cyclones continue to outperform preseason expectations for me. After losing key scorers from last year like Keyshawn Gilbert and Curtis Jones, there were questions about their ceiling, but TJ Altsberger's system has delivered once again, it seems. A road win at Purdue remains a major resume builder, and the Cyclones added another quality result with a hard-fought rivalry win over Iowa this past week. And in the game, Iowa State showed toughness, composure, and balance even when the offense wasn't fully clicking, and now they are perfect through 11 games and have proven they can win in different ways. And with their play so far, Iowa State has established itself as one of the most reliable teams in the country. But rounding out the top 5 at number 5 is UConn, and the Huskies continue to look every bit like a national contender to me. After an early home loss to Arizona, Dan Hurley's team has responded with consistent, high-level play and a strong non-conference resume. Last week, UConn earned a marquee win over the defending national champion Florida at Madison Square Garden before following it up with another victory over Texas. And with veterans like Alex Caravan and impactful newcomers, the Huskies have shown balance on both ends of the floor and have other wins over teams like BYU, Illinois, and Kansas that even further strengthen their case as one of the top squads. And as Big East play approaches, UConn looks like the most complete team in that conference and a serious threat nationally once again. At number 6 is Gonzaga, and this is one of my favorite teams in the country right now. Mark Few has another loaded roster, and it's shown through in their quality wins over the likes of Alabama, Kentucky, and UCLA. And right now, the only bad thing you can say about the Zags is their blowout loss to Michigan at the Players Era tournament, but Gonzaga bounced back in a big way with dominant performances, including a massive win over North Florida, before grinding out a tough victory against UCLA this past weekend. And this team has already faced 8 power conference opponents and has won all but one of those games. And with their depth, scoring balance, and experience across the lineup, Gonzaga has taken full advantage of its toughest stretch so far and now heads towards conference play, where the Bulldogs realistically could go undefeated. Checking in at number 7 is Purdue, who has responded exactly how you'd want after their surprising home loss to Iowa State. Following an undefeated 7-0 start to the year, the Boilermakers were humbled by the Cyclones in that game, but have rebounded with dominant 20-plus point wins over Minnesota and Marquette, and have shown sharp execution and balance on both ends of the floor, while the offense has seemed to have found its rhythm again. And the Boilermakers' 2-0 start in Big Ten play has quickly steadied the ship for them and reinforced just how talented this starting group remains. And while there's still plenty of season left, Purdue looks locked in once again and continues to profile as one of the strongest teams in the conference, heading toward a major non-conference matchup against Auburn. And sitting right behind the Boilermakers at number 8 is Houston, and the Cougars haven't looked exactly how I expected they would to start the year, but they are still loaded with potential. After a run to the national title game last season, Houston hasn't been tested quite as often in non-conference play, as they are just 1-1 in quad 1 games, with a close win over Auburn and a loss to Tennessee. But this past week offered little resistance, as the Cougars rolled to 2 lopsided victories over Jackson State and New Orleans, and this freshman class that they have continues to flash upside time and time again, and the overall talent level remains undeniable, and a looming matchup against Arkansas should finally provide a better idea for where this team truly stands. Next at number 9 is BYU, and the Cougars continue to show just how dangerous their new look roster can be. With returning momentum from last season's Sweet 16 run, this group has already stacked impressive wins, including earlier victories over Wisconsin and Miami, and this week featured one of the wildest comebacks of the season, as BYU erased a massive halftime deficit to stun Clemson on a Robert Wright three-pointer at the buzzer, and the Cougars followed that up with a dominant home performance against UC Riverside. And the big knock for BYU so far has been their slow starts to games, which have been a recurring theme, but their second half execution and star-level performances from AJ Debinsa have consistently carried them through big moments, and the Cougars look to be positioning themselves as a legitimate threat in the Big 12. And rounding out the top 10 at number 10 is Michigan State, which is a team that continues to stack quality results, and the Spartans' only loss came against a strong Duke team, while their non-conference resume includes multiple double-digit wins and an encouraging start to Big Ten play. This week wasn't flawless though, but Michigan State showed resilience with a gritty road win at Penn State, surviving despite not playing their best basketball in that one. But the shooting was efficient, and key contributors stepped up when it mattered most. And after surprising many with a Big Ten regular season title last year, a 2-0 start to league play hints at another strong run, and while others may sit slightly ahead for now, Michigan State remains firmly in control of its own path. Coming in at number 11 is Louisville, and sustaining last season's turnaround has become the clear mission under Pat Kelsey. After reestablishing national credibility a year ago, the Cardinals have followed it up with strong early season results, including signature wins over Indiana and Kentucky. And Louisville only played once this past week, but it was their best offensive showing of the season, cruising past Memphis in a dominant performance that showcased just how good this team can be. 6 different players reached double figures, highlighting just how many options Kelsey can turn to, and this roster has the playmakers and firepower to make a real ACC title push, and the offense looked incredibly efficient last weekend, and that lone road loss at Arkansas is fading fast, though another major test awaits with a trip to Tennessee coming up next. At number 12 is Vanderbilt, which has been a team that has quietly put together one of the nation's most consistent starts, and while the Commodores haven't been as battle-tested as others in this range, they've handled every challenge thrown their way. A road-heavy resume already includes impressive wins, most notably a blowout of St. Mary's that continues to age well, and this week lacked a marquee matchup, but Vanderbilt did what good teams do, which is take care of business against the likes of Central Arkansas to stay undefeated on the year. Tyler Nickel led the way with a career performance, but the bigger story remains that this team's steady energy and execution night after night continues to show. Vanderbilt isn't chasing the headlines, they're simply just stacking wins, and that approach will be tested soon with road trips to Memphis and Wake Forest looming before conference play. Landing at number 13 is North Carolina, and at their best, the Tar Heels can compete with just about anyone, as shown by their wins against Kansas and Kentucky, but at times, defensive lapses have crept in, which is what we saw in their loss to Michigan State. But this past week, North Carolina rolled past Georgetown with strong offensive production before grinding out another win against South Carolina upstate. Caleb Wilson and Henry Vasar continue to emerge as key pieces for this team, providing scoring and rebounding stability in the front court, and Hubert Davis has his team in a solid position overall, but it still seems like there's some room for growth, and their upcoming matchups should offer some more clarity, including their game against Ohio State this coming weekend. Coming in at number 14 is Arkansas, and this Razorback team has looked far different in December than it did in November to me. They had some early season struggles with their losses to Duke and Michigan State that raised some questions, but the Razorbacks have answered them emphatically. A strong win over Louisville started the turnaround, and that momentum continued with an impressive neutral site victory over a ranked Texas Tech team this weekend. And Arkansas erased an early deficit in that game and showed toughness, some strong scoring ability, and confidence against quality competition. And the freshmen have been impactful. Trevin Brazile has been excellent so far as well, and this team is starting to stabilize at the right time. And 2 ranked wins in less than 2 weeks have changed the outlook completely for me, and that momentum will be tested again soon though, with a major non-conference showdown against Houston on the horizon. Next at number 15 is Alabama, and this team has one of the best offenses in the entire country and one of the most brutal non-conference schedules. Nate Oates' squad picked up early wins over Illinois and St. John's, but inconsistency has also led to some tough losses for the Crimson Tide. This past week was a perfect snapshot of that reality, as Alabama dominated UTSA with ease before running into a buzzsaw against Arizona, falling in a high-profile matchup in that one. And despite the loss, the offensive firepower has been evident, with strong performances from multiple contributors on the team, especially LeBaron Vylon, and their resume may include 3 losses, but context matters here, as Alabama has been tested relentlessly and there's still plenty to like as SEC play approaches. And the schedule eases slightly before conference play, starting with a matchup against South Florida next week. Coming in at number 16 is Nebraska, and the Cornhuskers are suddenly one of the hottest teams in the country. The unbeaten start looked solid early, but it's the past 10 days that have truly put Nebraska on the national radar. Their dominant rivalry win over Creighton kicks things off, and then followed that up with an emphatic Big Ten opener with a blowout of Wisconsin in Lincoln, Nebraska, and that momentum carried into Saturday, where Nebraska pulled off a dramatic road upset at Illinois on a buzzer beater, and winning that game while controlling long stretches was especially impressive and secured a 2-0 start in Big Ten play. And Fred Hoiberg's group is playing with confidence right now, and this recent stretch has validated their perfect record so far. And Nebraska won't be tested again immediately, but this surge has earned some real respect for me, which is why I have them up at number 16. Right behind Nebraska at number 17 is Illinois, and their record doesn't fully reflect how dangerous they've looked so far. And despite their 3 losses, the Fighting Illini continue to post strong offensive metrics and have flash contender level play to me. Big Ten action opened positively with a road win at Ohio State, but that momentum stalled at home against Nebraska as defensive lapses proved costly in a loss. And while it is disappointing, a 1-1 record to start conference play is far from disastrous, especially considering the quality of competition they've faced. And all 3 of their losses so far have come against ranked opponents, and this team still has plenty of upside. And Illinois has over a week to regroup before their matchup against a good Missouri team, which could help to get them back on track. At number 18 is Kansas, and although the Jayhawks started the year off shaky after the injury to Darren Peterson, they have shown some real progress, especially in the past week. The Jayhawks stumbled in November with losses to Duke and North Carolina, but they also picked up quality wins and went 3-0 at the Players Air Festival. And after another setback in early December against UConn, Kansas responded with 2 important victories as they handled their rival Missouri in a 20-point win before earning a gritty overtime win at NC State. And those ones didn't come easily, but they mattered, especially with Darren Peterson returning to the lineup. And Kansas may not look dominant yet, but this week proved they can still win tough games. And with Big 12 play approaching, the Jayhawks appear to be becoming more and more consistent as a team at the right time. Checking in at number 19 is Texas Tech, and this is a team that has a high ceiling, but there are some lingering concerns. At their best, the Red Raiders can overwhelm opponents, as shown in a strong win over LSU earlier in the week. However, depth issues have become increasingly apparent for this team, especially against some of the top competition that they face, and that problem surfaced again in a loss to Arkansas this past weekend, where Texas Tech built an early lead, but it faded late while relying heavily on a short rotation. And now their losses to Illinois, Purdue, and Arkansas all highlight that same recurring theme, as well as the team struggling to close against these elite opponents. And that starting lineup is one of the most talented in the Big 12, but consistent bench production remains a question mark for me. But Texas Tech will get another measuring stick soon in a high-profile matchup against Duke. Rounding out the top 20 at number 20 is Auburn, who is one of the hardest teams for me to pin down so far. At times, the Tigers have looked dangerous, pushing Houston and stacking double-digit wins over quality opponents like St. John's and NC State, but in other moments, they've been completely overwhelmed, suffering lopsided losses to Michigan and Arizona, and this week was about regaining footing as Auburn took care of business with a solid win over Chattanooga, and key contributors like Tahad Pettiford and Keyshawn Hall stepped up, and the offense looked far more controlled in that game, but consistency remains the biggest issue, with outside shooting and defensive breakdowns proving costly against some of the elite teams they've played, and Auburn is still finding its identity, and it's clearly not at last year's talent level yet, but a massive opportunity awaits against Purdue to change that perception. Coming in at number 21 is Rick Pitino and St. John's, and to start the season, it has been underwhelming to say the least for the Johnnies. The Red Storm already have 3 losses, all coming against ranked opponents, including a tough stretch during the Players Era Festival, and shooting consistency and defensive execution have been issues, but this week was all about staying on track, and they played at home and St. John's took care of business with a comfortable win over Iona, and they shot efficiently and never let that game get away, and while that result didn't answer some of the lingering questions we have, it was exactly what was needed for them. Rick Pitino has assembled a talented roster through the transfer portal, and the upside remains clear, but Big East play begins shortly, followed by a major non-conference test against Kentucky that should tell us much more. At number 22 is Tennessee, and the Volunteers are trying to regain their momentum after a difficult 3-game stretch. Tennessee opened the season with a strong run, highlighted by an impressive win over Houston at the Players Era Festival, but since then, the schedule has stiffened and the results have followed that. Tennessee entered this week on a 3-game losing streak with losses to Kansas, Syracuse, and Illinois, exposing some inconsistencies in their game, and they didn't take the floor this past week, leaving time to regroup and refocus, but despite the recent slide, there's no reason for panic in Knoxville to me. The resume still includes a marquee win over Houston, and the talent level remains high with Nate Ament and Jacoby Gillespie, and Tennessee will now face another significant challenge at home against Louisville, and that game could swing the narrative back in their favor quickly. Coming in at number 23 is Virginia, and the Cavaliers' return to relevance has been one of the quieter stories of the season, and under first-year head coach Ryan Odom, Virginia has stacked wins and opened December with strong performances, including a convincing road victory at Texas and a solid win over Dayton as well, and this week wasn't as eye-catching, but the Cavaliers handled business again with a comfortable win over Maryland Eastern Shore, and Virginia has now won 4 straight games, and the offense has been noticeably more productive than in years past, and the schedule hasn't been overly demanding yet, and a loss to Butler still lingers, but the Cavaliers are doing exactly what they need to do, and another opportunity awaits next weekend against Maryland to further validate this start. Sliding back to number 24 is Florida, and the Gators still look like they are dealing with the pressure of defending a national title. Florida has missed several chances to build their resume this season, including close losses to Arizona and Duke earlier this season, and that frustration continued this past week with a narrow loss to UConn at Madison Square Garden, where Florida definitely showed some fight, but just couldn't finish the comeback over the Huskies. However, they responded later in the week with a solid win over George Washington, which has stabilized some things after the tough stretch, but their record is for sure underwhelming, but it's far too early for me to write Florida off with months of FCC play ahead. Xavier Lee is beginning to find his rhythm, it looks, as well, and there's belief that others will follow, specifically Boogie Flan, but for now, Florida gets a brief breather before conference play begins. And rounding out my top 25 at number 25 is Georgia, who is a team that is quietly piling up some wins. The Bulldogs didn't post many headline-grabbing results in November, but they've been steady and efficient, highlighted by a close win over Xavier and a blowout victory at Florida State. And this week brought another quality performance as Georgia handled Cincinnati at home with control from start to finish, and once again, outside shooting wasn't a strength, but the interior scoring carried the day for the Bulldogs, and Georgia may not be on many radars yet, especially after losing key pieces like Asa Newell from last season's tournament team, but the metrics like what they're doing offensively, and with no major tests before the new year, the Bulldogs will look to keep stacking wins heading into SEC play. And I also wanted to mention some of the teams that I have my eye on but are just outside of my top 25 rankings, but they could be included here soon, and they are the Iowa Hawkeyes, the USC Trojans, the UCLA Bruins, the St. Mary's Gales, and the Kentucky Wildcats. But that wraps it up for today's video. Let me know your thoughts on my top 25 rankings in the comments down below. Was there a team that was way too high or way too low? Or was there a team that I didn't even include that should have been? Also, if you enjoyed the content, don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.